Welcome to the Heartbreak to Happiness Show with Sara Davison. If you're struggling with a breakup and you feel shocked, angry, betrayed, devastated, or sad and alone, then this podcast is for you. Best-selling author and award-winning host Sara Davison shares how you too can get on with your life to heal, grow, and move from heartbreak to happiness. Here's your host, Sara Davison.
Welcome back to the show, and today my guest is Mas Sajady. Mas is a world-renowned consciousness programmer who, through his unique techniques and meditations, shifts people's lives to an evolved and advanced frequency level that enables them to achieve success, fulfillment, and happiness from a natural and balanced state. From a very young age, Mas showed signs of higher intuition, and after his second near-death experience, he acquired highly advanced capabilities for quantum frequency programming. His journey to discover the true meaning of this newfound ability led to his own personal breakthroughs, giving him a new, effortless, happy, and fulfilling life. This found knowledge enlightened him with the limitless possibilities in human potential. And today, Mas fulfills his potential by helping others reprogram and elevate their frequency to activate their inner force and experience life from a place of confidence, stability, significance, and abundance. So I am super excited to welcome Mas Sajady to the show. Welcome, Mas.
Sarah, thank you so much for having us.
Well, I'm very excited about this. All my followers will know that I interviewed you already, didn't I, for the Love event where we're both going to be in Miami in February. But this
Absolutely
is all about you, Mas. And I know from my initial conversations with you that this is going to be such a fascinating, helpful episode for my listeners. So your backstory is so amazing that I would love it if you could share it with my listeners.
Sure. And again, you tell me how deep you want to go, but overall, I've had 2 near-death experiences. And like Anita Moorjani, I don't know if you're familiar, she wrote this very popular book, Dying to Be Me, and she cured herself of cancer. And there's other individuals who've had near-death experiences, and they've really come out with really amazing abilities. They become savants almost. Great mathematical skills, great artistic talents, great future vision. People have had psychic abilities and so on like that. I happen to come out, which we all have, by the way, I happen to come out with abilities on bringing out, say, the best possible you. And that's what I do. And, I make it so simple that 1, you don't have to have a near-death experience. And 2, even if I told you the science behind it, you probably wouldn't believe me anyway, because it's so simple. So.
Well, I know my listeners are going to be thinking, well, what happened? I mean, 1 near-death experience is enough for a lifetime, maybe, but 2. So, please do tell us what happened. We're fascinated.
Well, the first near-death really allowed me to, and it was a rail car accident. I used to work at a warehouse, when I was a young kid, college job. And I got my jaws crushed between these 2 walls. I'll describe the whole story. So inside a rail car, Sarah, you've got these moving walls that hold the product in place. And that moving wall was stuck. So I offered to climb up on top and pull that wall while my team members were pulling underneath. This wall is about maybe like 600-700 pounds. So pretty heavy. And then all of a sudden it gave way. And I slid across the rail car, and then what stopped it was my jaw between the wall and the ceiling members, and I got my jaws crushed. So I was hanging, not by my neck, but by my jaw right there, just dangling like that. And it sounds scary, but it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've had, because 1, I'm here to tell about it. 2, it allowed me to see the limited possibility of who we think we are. Because this is where I was still conscious, but I wasn't in my body. fact, I was floating out of my body, and I'm sure you've heard stories or even seen movies, where people float out and they look over themselves, on a surgery table or, those kind of situations. Well, that was me. I was floating out and I was looking at my body and I'm going, wow. I felt really sad for myself. It's like, you don't know who you really are, did you? And I was so limited. But then within a flash, I asked myself, I go, wait a second, what am I doing here if my body's over here? I'm supposed to be in my body. I'm supposed to be there, And it's like I wasn't. And then that's the flash. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm dead. And that really opened me and that really pulled me behind the veil even more. And I realized the grandness. And then all of a sudden, this great joy, this great love that we're all looking for, right? The beauty, the grace that we all are seeking, boom, filled me. I didn't even think about my body anymore. I was go, whoa, this is the world that I want to be in. And then, I went through the layers, I guess, or the tunnel of light. The tunnel of light, usually people go through meeting their loved ones. And so I didn't go through that. I skipped that. And I went into a life review. And that life review is not really a life review to me. It was actually a life relive. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because a lot of times, judging, and I can analyze your audience, scan your audience as we speak, and even scan you, by the way, as we speak. And I'll tell you a little bit about my abilities later on. But that life review is not, some bearded white man that's angelic or God, sitting across the table and going, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, and then tally up the score. You either go, up or down. Guys, it's got nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. It literally is about you, and it's not a life review. You relive your life all over again. But you live it from a consciousness of your grander version of who you are. So from the time I was born all the way till that time of death, and it only takes maybe a few seconds, but since time is distorted, you can live, for me, it was about 22 years in maybe a matter of a few seconds. Because again, time gets distorted. So you experience all the things that you've ever done all over again, but you get a chance to write it. You get a chance to go, oh, I understand what it was about. So there is no, I wish I coulda, or I wish I shoulda, or I wish it's like, why did I marry this person? Why have I gotten divorced so many times? Do I get abused in these relationships? All those things that we think about is like, why the hell did that happen to me? You see it not from a kindergarten level, because that's the way we are, or even preschool, because a lot of times, we're going through life as a preschool level, but you see it, you live it from the grander being that you are, that pure spirit that we are, right? That limitless possibilities of who we are. And when we see that, we get to write a lot of things, or basically rewrite our life. And it was an amazing experience. And then it's like, there's a voice that comes out. I don't know where that voice is, but it's like, yeah, you have a choice. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to go back? And they push you. It's literally like you get vortex back. It's not like you really have a choice. It's like, yeah, do you want to stay here, or do you want to go back, as they push you back? And it's like, it's really jolting and it really hurt. But that experience really allowed me to see the brilliance. It allowed me to see the pure love that we're always going for. It allowed me to see the abundance that we're all searching. And as I dropped back into my body, that's when the pain of my jaw, the realization, that where the hell am I? And then I dropped to, the floor of the rail car, which I was probably about 6-7 feet high, and I just dropped, and that's when I just blacked out. And then I found myself in the hospital with my jaws wired shut, and those 3-4 months of my jaws being wired shut, so my jaws can heal. Again, an amazing experience, because I was living from the bigger possibilities of who we are. So that was the first near-death experience.
Wow. I mean, wow, what a story. I mean, there are no words. I mean, that is an incredible thing to have experienced, but also to remember and then bring that back. So you you were talking about there were abilities that you learned from that. I mean, you're only young, right? So how
Yeah.
were you, was there no fear of that? Was it acceptance? How did you process that? And how do people around you process that?
Well, it was pretty interesting because people around me started to look at me differently. I didn't fit in because, well, kind of birds of a feather flock together. And, well, when you know who you are compared to the masses that don't know who they are. And even today, as I've ascended my abilities, and that's what I teach people to come into their abilities, their power that we all have, yeah, you start to separate and you start to feel alone, or you start to isolate yourself because you'd rather be with the crowd over here, you know what I mean? The bigger potential of who we are, rather than, the people who have the problems. And it's not like losers, winners, but it's like, gosh, I don't associate with people like that. So it was hard, for me. But I didn't pay much attention to it, frankly, because I was more interested as like, what are the possibilities of living that life in physical form? It's like, do you have to die to experience that life? So my whole trajectory up to the second near death experience is like, how do I live that life here? I want that life here. And I think that's what we all crave, right? Because we all know at a deeper level that we're really grander beings, and we're not supposed to be in this reality with so much hatred, or so much fake love, as I call it, all those things that we decide. It's like, I think we're all searching for the same thing, literally. It's like, but I was just awakened to it. It's like, and the awakening part is that, hey guys, we don't have to search anymore. It's over there. You know what I mean? So that's the only difference. So through that whole time, about 20 years or so, till I was like 47, that was my second near death. So in between that time, I was a very successful computer programmer. I ran my own web development company, is database design. Um, and so programming was highly important for me. And I actually failed like computer programming in college. That was the weirdest thing. So I think that was one of the gifts that I got after this near death. Aside from being really intuitive, I could see future vision for people. It's like, oh, that guy's going to get sick, or that person. So those things started coming in. My intuition, as I call it, started coming in.
So were you
No,
using those abilities? Because computer programming, I mean, doesn't sound as spiritual as using the intuition and helping people. They're quite different. So how did you balance that?
that I'm glad you asked that question, Sarah, because, well, there's a huge connection, and we'll find out on in my second near death. If that's okay, I'll tell you the
Yeah, sure.
connection.
So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so the key to, and I use my computer programming knowledge, database design and so on, like that. And I was really good at it, and because I could intuit what the client actually needed before they even know what they needed. That was really the key. So that made me very successful as a business person. So fast forward to the second near death experience. We were on a family holiday. We went to Belize, and we were just talking about cenotes and so on, right? Mexico, Belize, and it was beautiful. And we decided to take a rafting trip. Now, just to get to the rafting trip was an amazing experience because everything was sold out. So that thing, to have that experience, yeah, for me to have that experience was laid out, I think, by the universe, because again, the raft was sold out, nobody could get in, and we were just walking out the ship. And I remember this person, they weren't looking for anybody else. They just came to us, and it's like, hey, you know what? We have, a group of whatever, one more rafting, opportunity. It's like, that's what we're looking for, is like, was it an angel from heaven or whatever? But it's just one of those things, is, it's like I had to be on this rafting trip where I drowned. And that's what we did. We went into the rafting trip. We were in the middle of the jungle. We trekked out, and, they're handing out the inner tubes. It wasn't a raft, it was an inner tube, and the life jackets. But they didn't have enough life jackets. So I was a really strong swimmer. So I go, well, it's okay. I don't need a life jacket. I'm a strong swimmer. So again, all those things laid out for me to drown. And we went into the river, and it was really fast. I mean, it was high tide, it was high season, rainy season. So the it wasn't your family river rafting trip, let's just say, which was supposed to, because I had little kids, in back then, like 6 years old. We were at the edge of the river, and all of a sudden I noticed that, well, one, before that, I had tied and checked and double checked and triple checked. I don't know why, for some reason, that my kids' life jackets were tied properly. I even double knotted them, aside from the clip, I knotted them and I'm going, I'm not that fearful kind of person. Why am I like this? Why am I double knotting my kids' life jackets? And then we get ready to jump into the river. And then all of a sudden I noticed that the jungle just went quiet. There was birds chirping, there was wind, and there was other sounds. And all of a sudden it was so surreal. Everything just like the universe knew that something was going to happen. And through the years, through the decade that I've been doing this, there's always a telltale sign that the universe knows when a tragedy happens. When people die and so on like that, there's an experience like that. When that quietness came over, I'm going, wow, so peaceful. What's going on? It was scary quiet, just like in the movies. It gets scary quiet, and then I jumped in, and the first thing that the guide says is like, you need to hold on, you need to interlock your legs, because the river is really fast. It'll take you out into other tributaries where you can get pulled into underground waterfalls and caves. So, and I'm going, that doesn't sound like a kid-like experience. Like, what the hell? But we're in Mexico, so you know what I mean. So as soon as we float out, all of a sudden it's like somehow my foot got unlocked, and two of my kids and I floated out. My wife at the time and the other, kids floated the other way. We went the other way, and I could see that I was getting sucked into the cenote, or a hole in the river. It was just this huge rock jutting out with a huge hole, just like a man-sized, like a sewer hole, about this big, just big enough for, say, a person to get sucked into. So I saw this, and it was so rapid. When water moves, you can't do anything, especially when you don't have a rudder or anything else, so I pushed the kids out of the way, my two young boys out of the way, and then I got sucked into the hole, and then I went into the bowels of the river, and I re-experienced what I experienced the first time, the disconnect of my body, and it was a really joyous experience. I know it sounds crazy. It was frightening as hell. It was frightening as hell, though. I'm not saying it wasn't frightening, because it's like, God, I'm holding my breath underwater. I'm getting sucked deeper and deeper, because basically cenotes are literally lava tubes that are now filled with water. So they do go into the bowels of the earth, and they're pretty deep. But somehow I go, I can't hold my breath anymore, and that's where the brilliance, because you're going to die again. It's like, here we go again. But I was excited because it's like I was familiar with the process, basically, and I was awakened. So I split from my body, and I could watch my body, float down into, the tunnel. Although it was pitch black, I could just literally see my body, because I wasn't seeing from my eyes. I was literally seeing from, my spirit version. And and then it's like I watched my body disappear, and then I floated through the water. I floated through the rock. Just literally, I could feel myself go through the rock and into a heavenly space. And I passed the tunnel of light. And here's the key secret that makes me different than other people who have near-death experiences, is that I passed through where you shouldn't go through. So, there's that tunnel of light, and that tunnel of light literally helps you graduate back into who you are as a spirit. So you're not supposed to come back. So, but I did. So I peeked behind what happens there. And at that level, you feel and you experience yourself in pure form. Okay. You can be anything you want. You don't need anything because you are the love that you need. You don't need love. You don't need obviously money or anything like that because you are everything that you could possibly be at one time because there is no time and space. You are all that you could ever imagine and more. And I'm going, wow, this is really cool. But I still had a human identity. And then something else clicked in. I went into this beautiful blue void, which led me even higher. And that's where there is no, say, definition of time and space at all. That beautiful blue void, well, it eliminated the concept of me, of a spirit being in human form. At that level, when you release that, you become a universe of your own. And it feels like a universe of your own. And at that level, you have access to all the information that ever was, is, and shall be, because again, there's no time and space. So at some level, I've connected, or when I came back into my life, which was quite an amazing experience, I'm still connected to that universal database, as I call it. So how did I come back? I don't know, because I found myself about 100, 200 yards above river from where I came down, which was really unbelievable because the water would, wash you down river. But I saw myself again a couple hundred yards, and I could still see my inner tube getting pulled in, because it was too big to get sucked into the hole. I'm going, wow, I had just died. And I was on the edge of the river, really calm. It was just a calm place in the river. And I'm going, whoa, somebody must really love me. That's all I said. Somebody up there must really love me. It's like, I wasn't choking. I wasn't drowning. My fingernails were pulled off because I was trying to crawl back out of that tunnel, and my back was all scratched up, bloody, because I was trying to push so I wouldn't get sucked down. Other than that, it was like I was in euphoria because I was living from a heavenly space in this physical reality. So, but after that, that's where my abilities started to come in.
So you came back and then you found your family. They discovered you, and
Yeah.
what happened?
Well, they discovered me, and by then, the ship, they weren't, because it was a cruise ship, they had sailed off because we were hours late. Not just a few minutes, we were hours late. It was the craziest event, Sarah. So my family found us. We all got back together. All of us, and then we had to get another taxi because the bus and all that stuff left. So to make it short, we got this car finally to take us, and then the car had a breakdown. So we were sitting somewhere for like a couple hours till another car came through, and it was just a dirt road. So
You didn't need to go to hospital. You were fine. You just carried
yeah,
on.
yeah. I mean, I was bloody, but I wanted to get back to the ship because I didn't want to get stuck there. And we were really scared when our family got together. We were just like crying and bawling because, well, I thought I had lost them. They thought I had lost their dad. But that scenario, so finally we got the driver, we got back on the ship, and we had to get a fare, a boat that taxis along, gets to the ship, and then they open up the planks again, and then while the ship is cruising at their full speed, because we're like an hour late, because they don't stop the ship. It's the craziest thing. They put the planks down, and then they literally, I was handing over my babies at the time, on this plank. It's like trying to get back in the ship, and it was the craziest thing. But after that, after all the crying and getting back together and all that, with the family, we went into, the big dining room hall. And this is where it was the craziest thing here. I could see at the time, I thought it was people's aura because that's all I heard about. But I was actually seeing people's spirits. And I'd look at somebody and it's like, oh, that guy has kidney problems. That guy has, relationship problems. Oh, that guy had a fight with his wife. It's like boom, boom, boom. Like I could scan people, just like Iron Man. Have you seen the Iron Man, the visual, that they have, and all the logistics
Yeah.
come up? Basically, that's what it was. As like I look at people, and it's like all these logistics of that person would come up. How they were born. They got abused. The divorces and stuff. I'm going, whoa, what is that? It was really overwhelming, and it's like I had to shut it down, but I couldn't. So I learned to live with it at first, and then over time I learned to shut it down and use it properly, like I do now. So, and this is where I get the abilities of, like, I could just analyze you, Sarah. You don't have to tell me anything, and then just peel it. And the importance of that is like it gets down to the top level reason or the root reason on why you have the issues that you do. And a lot of times it's not because it's the surface level issue. A lot of people think you get divorced because of X, Y, and Z, for example, or you're not making money because of X, Y, and Z, and then you try to fix X, Y, and Z. But the underlying factor is, it could be ancient, it could be your family's patterns, right? That is distorting you, disorienting you. So
now this is how you help people, and that's
oh yeah, it's more than full time, absolutely. Got millions of people, a couple 100,000 downloads on my podcast, like 3, 4, 5 months waiting list to come see me on a private session. But you don't have to see me in a private session to transform. My abilities have changed so much that I can transform you or reprogramming you, because that's what I do. I literally rewire your genetic makeup from what I see. And that's where the computer programming comes in, Sarah. So it's like I had to understand the logistics of like computer coding, because that's the way I see people. I literally see you as programming, because we are programs. We might call it like habits, right? Or hereditary patterns. I just call it programs. So, and I see, oh, it's like, this is the glitch in your program. Let's fix it. And then almost immediately, a lot of people transform. I bet that a lot of people listening to this, although I'm not even like working on you, the listeners, although even if it's recorded, a lot of your listeners will start to shift just from listening to this broadcast. That's how powerful it gets. So I know it sounds crazy because it's way out there.
I'm a huge fan. I know you've got millions of followers around the world, so I mean, I'm there with you. So for people listening who are heartbroken, maybe they've been betrayed. I know a lot of my followers are in a really dark place right now, and it's overwhelmed. And this sounds amazing. So how can they make the most of this? How can they tune into this and start to see some of those transformations?
One of the first things you can do is, again, don't really analyze the problem, because the problem that you think is a problem is most likely not the problem. Say like if your brakes, if you're driving a car and then you think your brakes are the problem, right? And it's not. It might be something totally different, and you keep working on the brakes and you keep fixing your brakes, and it's like your car still has that problem. It's like, well, wait a second. It's probably not the brakes, And I say this because it's like, oh, that person has to get out of my life, and then the next relationship, it turns into the same damn type of relationship over and over and over again. That's what I'm saying. It might not be the person that you're dating, but you start to analyze yourself. So the one key question I think people can ask themselves, outside of what I do for them, which is a lot faster, is like, because I could tell you right away, it's like, hey, this is what's going on with you. But the one key question that you can ask yourself is like, okay, what key patterns am I running that's allowing this situation to attract into my life? So again, what key patterns am I running that is allowing this type of situation to get attracted into my life? So, and you just leave it open, and then you'll start to see the bigger, deeper reasons. I was like, oh, wow, that's what's happening to me. My mother had this pattern. And, and I was working on this woman, and she was really guilty. She felt guilty and shameful that she's had like she had, and she didn't even want to admit it. But, when you have a session with me, I see everything, and it's like, did you lose a few kids? It's like, no, I didn't. It's like, well, obviously, you can tell. I mean, I can tell. It's as clear as day. Like the way I'm seeing you, Sarah, right? With your black blouse on and all that, white background. I see the exact issue. I see it clear as day, probably even more clear than I actually see you. That's how clear my abilities are on pinpointing what's going on with you. So I see that, and
hang on. So now I really want to know what that is, right? Can you share that with me? Will you share it with me?
With you?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear, or like in maybe in a private session, because I get really personal?
So, okay. Well, maybe we'll do that in a person. Okay. I mean, I'm fascinated now.
So I tapped into her, and it's like, and then she says no, and then I see it's like, oh, your back structure is like a lot like your mom's, because I was kind of easing her into it. It's like yeah, it's like your mom has back problems, you have back problems. It's like yeah, and then I see physical issues that people have and all that, and so I compare where she gets her hereditary patterns. So I was easing her in, and then again that thing came out. It's like, are you sure you didn't lose some kids? And then finally she broke down, and this is where the guilt came in for her. It's like, and then she broke down, and it's like, okay, I had 3 abortions, and very like, protective. It's like, hey, there's no judgment. I'm just seeing the patterns that destroy you. I go, yeah, and I go, just like your mom's back issues and whatever else that you've inherited, we inherit a lot of things from our parents. If you ask your mom, it's like your mom lost a few kids, right? And she goes, yeah, she did. And I go, well, those were abortions. So it's a hereditary. And I go, your grandmother lost a few kids. So in their family pattern, it's the sense of losing kids, whether it's through abortion or whether it's through a loss of somehow, the kid, the infant didn't make it, whatever it is. It's the pattern dictates that the women in this family has to lose their kids, at least a few. Does that make sense to you? So it's a sense of loss. It's a sense of loving something in this example. It's a sense of loving something, something that you cherish that gets lost for you. And then basically, you regret it for the rest of your life. That's the underlying pattern that this woman would run. And because of that, her relationships weren't working out well, because every man that she had would somehow, they'd be at their pinnacle of their, say, relationship, and somehow the guy would just like disappear. Why? Because that pattern would have to fulfill a sense of loss, since she didn't have a kid. Does that make sense to you? How the patterns dictate? And then it's like, well, I don't know why relationships don't work out for me, Moss. It's like, well, if you're running a sense of loss, and your programming is, in order for me to exist in this life, my programming is that something that I cherish and love dearly has to be taken away from me. If that pattern is dictated, it runs no matter what your belief system is, no matter what it is. It operates that way. You can't change those patterns. I can change. You can change it once you're aware of it, by the way. But most people, what they do is, again, they fix the outer, it's like, I've tried dating services, I've tried this and I've tried that, and still nothing. Well, that's the reason why, is like, you have to, again, sacrifice what you love and cherish. So you remove that pattern. And in a very short time, she actually came back to one of her last love, because they were still connected somehow. And, I don't know to this day, but, again, they got connected because that pattern was gone for her. So, and I could tell you, well, hundreds of thousands of stories, because I've done hundreds of thousand client sessions, by the way. So, but, you get to the base point of what's going on with people. Even for you, and again, we'll talk about that in private if you don't mind, because we get, I do get detailed information. So, but well, just to read, do you mind if I read you just a surface layer on why you're so successful?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for most people, and again, I'll just give you generalities for you, just because we're on, public. But there's a pattern that you're a problem solver. So the issues that you have, especially in relationships, over and over and over again, is like, okay, I have this relationship issue in my family, because it goes deeper than just your pattern, by the way. And it almost skips a generation from what I'm seeing as well. So from what I'm seeing, it skips a generation. It's kind of weird. So you, Sarah, get the brunt of the family patterns or the family distortions of how intimacy works and how relationship works. Does that make sense to you? You've gotten fate dumped on as far as genetic makeup. And then what you do, your other aspect of your other programming, is you're a problem solver. It's like, okay, I've got this problem. I'm not going to let me down. Even as a young child, I see you fixing things or giving solutions to people like 6, 7, 8 years old. It's like, well, Daddy, why don't you do this? And it's like, your mom or dad would go, who the hell is this girl? That kind of pattern. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
I'm just reading your background for you. And it's like, and then that's your identity. You're a fixer. People come to you with problems, and it's like you're fixing, and you have this intuitive sense, a very, very deep intuitive sense that I can tell you where it comes from. But again, not here. And it's like, so you get this deeper connection. From a near death, but it's not your near death experience. That goes, oh, I know the problem. I know the solution to this, the physical aspect of it. And then, so you've turned it around into a success mechanism for what you do now to help people. And by the way, Sarah, you explain a lot of things and all that, but it's your presence that actually heals people or helps people move forward. I mean, your content is really great from what I've seen. Again, that's the logistics side, but how you really help people is, again, your presence or your essence when you interact with people. And you can ask any of your audience and they'll go, yeah, there's something special about Sarah. That's that key. That's something special about you, hon, is what gives you the solutions, even when you were a little kid, like 4, 5, 6 years old, right? And you've used that, you've honed it, just like I have with my near death. You've honed it, again, to create fantastic solutions for people.
Wow. Yes. I mean, that's resonating, and I'm feeling like I'm buzzing, like I'm suddenly quite warm. Is that normal?
Well, yes, because in order for me to read you or scan you, as I call it, I would have to like open up your files, and that's what you're experiencing. The cool thing about what I do too, Sarah, is that you don't have to have a belief system. You don't even have to believe me, because I have literally admin privileges to anybody. Literally, I can read and analyze anybody, dead or alive. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but and really, well, very precisely, by the way. So, and I just say that because some people get scared. It's like, what if he finds out everything about me? Well, the universe already knows everything about you. I'm just that filter, that that mouthpiece that goes, hey, this is what the universe sees in you, despite what you see in yourself. So, and I don't use it to harm people, because my abilities would literally get shut down. At the level that I'm at, you can't use abilities to harm, destroy, control, or anything like that. There's no need to, there's no sense to do that, because there's plenty of abundance and love and joy out there for the taking, actually. So I don't need anybody else's.
So you touched on love there, and that obviously is a key word in my work.
Yeah,
And a lot of my listeners
absolutely.
will feel that they've lost that love from their
Yes.
partner.
Yes.
A lot of the people that I work with are looking for love.
Yes.
What's your opinion, your view on that? Because obviously love is you're talking about abundant love. I'm feeling it's not the same thing. What are we missing?
Well, yeah. So I'm a science guy. I'm a computer programmer, and the variables have to be really defined. And that's why I think the background of being a computer programmer is highly important, because if you're off with, like, say, one line of code, your whole program doesn't work out well. Does that make sense to you? And that's why I'm so precise. So first we have to define love. And I'll just give you an example. Say that you've been abused in your family somehow, psychologically, physically, sexually, whatever it is, right? And the only way, and I'll just make it more specific, and I'll just pick on, okay. So something that really resonates with your audience is that, um, yeah, about 60, 70%, maybe a bit more. So is that there's been a lot of turmoil in the environment that they grew up in. Okay. So their family dynamics or their hereditary patterns, grandparents, parents, and so on, like that, say not the best icons of a strong male or strong female. Okay. And you go, well, that's pretty general. Yes. So it'll get more specific. So again, say they've gotten abused, sexually, psychologically, and so on, like that. But the key factor is that without the abuse or without the distortions, what happens is that they didn't get any other type of attention. So a lot of your audiences have been left alone, so to speak, or they'll feel isolated, by the way. Um, and there's different levels of isolation. So basically, without, say, and we'll just label it as abuse, whether it's extreme or very minor. So and then because I don't want to get into specifics, but and then you don't even get abused anymore. You'll feel really isolated. Does that make sense? People don't pay attention to you anymore. You'll just feel like what the hell's wrong with me? So most of your audiences have a deep need to connect to somebody. By the way, you attract people like that, and that's why your audience is like that. Your audience has a deep need to connect with you, but you do it really well. Very impressive. You still have that, say, obligation for them to allow you to connect, but you don't destroy yourself. So you're doing it really well. But that deep need to connect, okay? If they don't get that deep need, what happens is they start to write an equation for them. And their equation or their programming is like, for me to, so they've been abused and that's how they got attention. Okay. Now there's no attention, there's no love. So it's like, oh, for me to create attention and love, I need to get shortchanged. I need to get abused. So that's the equation for love. So love equals, in this scenario, and you guys might want to just write it down. And I know some of you, it's like, God, I hate that guy, Moss. It's not me that you're hating, guys. Literally, I'm just bringing out the truth. And you're hating to see the truth. So for you, love equals, well, I need to get abused. So I hate to say it, that's a fucked up definition of love. Does that make sense? So you have to really define what love is. So in your family value system, again, love equals abuse. I have to get abused. I have to shortchange myself. I have to not trust myself. I have to lose my identity for the sake of others. That's the next half. For the people, most of the people in your audience is like, shit, okay, I have to shortchange myself, right? I have to somehow get shortchanged to feel love or be in a relationship. Because now love, it's not about love anymore. It's just, I just need somebody around me. If that makes sense to you, right? It's like, forget love. I can't stand being alone. Because if you're alone, it's like you feel a void, right? And you feel the void. It's like, shit, I'll take anybody, including that person that'll abuse me somehow. Okay. And then they threaten to leave, or it's like you feel fearful that you're leaving. They're going to leave. So what do? You start to sacrifice yourself. That's the next pattern I see in your, and again, tell me if I'm accurate. But a lot of clients that you work with, there's a lot of sacrifice in there, right? It's like, shit, I know who I am. A lot of you, again, because you're intuitive now. It's like, but I can't bring that out. And in order for me to stay in this person for some reason or another, and you might think well, I don't have the money to move out. I don't have this that's not the case. A lot of times you're very insecure enough and you just don't have, say, the confidence to be alone on your own. So, and then a representation of that would be lack of money to support your own self. Because I've helped a ton of people recreate themselves and money does come in. But anyway, so love is bypassed because a lot of people don't marry for love. They marry for that underlying reason that I just talked about. And then it's like, well, I'm bypassing love. I'm bypassing my self-identity of who I really am because I'm going to sacrifice myself to transform into somebody that I'm not so this person can stay with me. How long does that last? You've done that yourself, Sarah, from what I've seen, right? And then at least 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. And each time it got worse and worse. With each relationship, it got worse. Like, shit, I have to give more of myself. And the way you are, you're a fighter. It's like, and that last time is like, hell no. I'm not doing that again. And that's where you just go, there has to be another way to find a solution for not only me, but then for, all the people that, you work with. It's like, okay, so you actually saw the pattern within yourself. So does that make sense? So that's basically the gist. So one, most people define love erratically. It's not that pure love. What do they call that? Unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
In the universe, and I always work with first definitions because you always want to come back to the first definition on what love means. No, so the first definition is the purest form of the definition, if you want to call it, defined by a god. Okay, or I would call it, pure source or the universe. It's there for your benefit. But then as it gets filtered down, like I said, right, you're wanting that craving love, but in this environment, it's pretty harsh. So you have to sacrifice yourself to get love. In its purest definition, love should set you free, and there should be no sacrifice. But you can't create this the way most people run their programs. Does that make sense for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of my listeners, from their comments and our conversations, they're looking for that love to fill some of the gaps in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So they think that love, because they're still running from that pure form, unconditional love, basically. But the way they're seeing it, or their vehicle to get love, let's say it's got a lot of flat tires and the engine's not working, so you're not going to go too far. And then it's like you have to hitchhike. And that's where the problem comes in, right? So
I mean, Mas, you are phenomenal. I mean, I think you're incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, but I know you're a very busy man. And
yes.
I just want to say thank you so much, because actually, some of the things you've said to me today, I mean, I'm buzzing, and it's hard for me to even talk now because I'm feeling so many emotions positive emotions in one go.
Yes, absolutely. Which is good. And even like I said, your audience will do that as well, just listening to this. And with that, again, and just one last thing here for you, your problem is still there. You've created a beautiful masterpiece, a beautiful mansion on top. But so, for you, hon, what if you could just get rid of that foundation, get rid of that stuff that's still there? The masterpiece or the solution that you've created, which is beautiful, that can like flourish even more for you. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
okay. Well, I mean, there's so many questions I have, but unfortunately we don't have the time today. But I want to say thank you so much. I think you're incredible. I know my listeners will have got so much from this. How can people find you, Mas? How can they follow you?
oh yeah, there's plenty of ways. Moss on Sunday It's on YouTube. It's if you go to massajady.live, it'll take you to the YouTube channel. There you can find a ton of stuff that's free. You can listen to it. Basically, it answers the questions on why life is. I actually did 13 ways to heal your love pain. I think for your listeners, we can maybe create a special link, and we can send you that free. So it's 13 topics, like, why did my spouse cheat on me? All the 13 things. So we can send that to you all as well. So we'll give you a link for that, which is really powerful, by the way. The Moss Experience, which is the best you. You'll see me on a love event, coming up in February. That's going to be really powerful for you. There's lots of ways. If you go to my website, massajady.com, the 18-day meditations, if you want to really start out now, 18-day hyper meditations, I call them. All you have to do is listen, and your life will transform in the 18 days. That's how powerful it is. So,
yeah. Oh, thank you, Mas. You have been beyond a fabulous guest. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode. Be sure to head on over to massajady.com to find out more about Mas. I certainly will be there myself, and I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.
That's it for today's episode of Heartbreak to Happiness. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to win a free ticket to one of Sara's virtual retreats. The retreats are a transformative combination of live webinars with Sara herself, coupled with empowering online video programs designed to help you cope better with your breakup and start feeling happy again. For more details, head on over to heartbreaktahappinesspodcast.com, where you can also get a copy of Sara's free gift. Thank you, and join us again on the next episode for another dose of Heartbreak to Happiness.